I should be writing number 385 for October 9th, 2017.
Well, I should be writing. I should be working on my craft. I should be writing. I should be submitting my next draft. But I'm sitting home watching Doctor Who.
Hi there, welcome to I Should Be Writing, the podcast for wannabe fiction writers. I'm your host, Mur Lafferty. And thanks to everybody who contacted me about my last show. I continue to do better. My morning routine is helping a lot. And as I said, I've experienced depressive dips before and know that if I just keep taking my medicine and take care of myself, I'll get out of it. And that happened, so that was a happy thing. Dealing with new dog and all the complications that come with new dog and complications with existing dog and trips to the vet and stuff. So haven't been as productive as I wanted to be, but a lot more productive than I was earlier last week. So that's a happy thing. We're all happy here. So what I've been up to is more stuff I can't talk about, unfortunately. But dang it, I didn't announce that I was going to New York Comic Con, and this is going up next week, so this will be after New York Comic Con. But I went to New York Comic Con this past weekend. I hope I had fun. But my story from a certain point of view, is out. That book came out this week. I'm recording it the week before because I'm trying to be responsible. And I've got a short story in there about the band from the Cantina scene in Star Wars. There are a lot of other writers in there, a lot of great stories. Today we have an interview with Nicky Drayden, author of The Prey of Gods, which is just flat out an amazing book. Can't wait to talk to her. And yeah, things just keep chugging along. One foot in front of the other, etc. So I'm going to go back to a couple of basics, but also look ahead to NaNoWriMo. Let's talk about outlines. I hate outlines. It's possible that you hate outlines. It's okay if you hate outlines. I am the kind of person who comes up with lots of I'll come up with a basic plot idea. But all the details about the plot idea will not reveal themselves to me until I'm in the middle of writing. This happens time and again. And I've learned to accept it. Unfortunately, at this point in my career, I need to be able to make a good outline. And it's a good idea to have an outline for NaNoWriMo because it's good to have a map when you're going somewhere fast. It's good to have a map when you're going anywhere, but sometimes people appreciate the organic method of writing, which I do. So how do you come up with an outline? I like to think of it like a map. I decide where I want to start and I decide where I want to end. You want to come up with your main characters. And you want to have an idea of what each character needs. What's going to move their story forward. And yes, every character has a story. You can't just have one star and a whole bunch of supporting people because that's weak storytelling. I mean, one thing that J.K. Rowling always had going for her in the Harry Potter series is every character had their own wants and needs and desires, and they didn't always mesh with what Harry wanted, needed, and desired, and that made for some really good conflict and realism. There was stuff Hermione was not willing to do. Ron would let his jealousy get the better of him, and there was stuff he was unwilling to do. So you think about what Hermione wanted. She wanted order, she wanted respect for knowledge, she wanted the guidance of books. Think about what Ron wanted. Frankly, Ron had a lot of selfish desires. He wanted to stand alone. He wanted to be recognized for who he was. It's not that selfish, but he just basically wanted to stand out from his entire family. And befriending one of the most famous 11-year-olds in the world was sort of a way to do it and a way to put himself directly in the backseat as well. So think about, everybody had their wants and needs. So think about your characters and what they want and need. And think about your characters and how they think about each other. Because they won't always think the same about each other. One person may be thinking that this person A may think person B is their best friend, and they would tell them anything. And person B thinks person A is okay friend. Not sure how trustworthy they are. Not sure if they're going to invite them to the final battle. Maybe they would be better off scouting ahead. Person C might be in love with person A, and person A think person C is kind of annoying. When you know how your characters feel about each other and what they want overall in the story, that's a big step forward. It will reveal so much to you. Think about your basic story beats. I kind of mentioned the same books over and over again. Probably because I've kind of stopped writing books, but also because there are some really good ones out there that I turn to every once in a while. And the one I'm referring to is Save the Cat, which is more of a film writing advice, but the story beats in a film are pretty much like the story beats in a written story. And they give some really good ideas of at what point do you need to reveal X, Y, and Z. There was a guy in my MFA program who did his final lecture on the revealing of the monster. And monster was used widely here. I think one of his required readings were A River Runs Through It, which has no monsters in it at all. But the revealing of the monster comes around the middle of the story. Interestingly enough, this only works in Western storytelling. I remember seeing the Korean film The Host, and I was baffled when the monster was running around a populated area in broad daylight, in full view of everyone, like 8 minutes in. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be a different film than I'm used to, because they revealed the monster so early. And, it worked for that film. So I think when you think about how storytelling is going, remember that your kind of storytelling may not be ubiquitous. But I am from the United States, so I'm going to be speaking from the mindset of Western storytelling. But yeah, the revealing of the monster has always been a very interesting thing for me. And oftentimes when I'm paying attention, I see it happen again and again. Because oftentimes you want to hint at the monster. You want to use the hinting of the monster to build tension. You see Jaws' fin. You see a swimmer disappear. You see bloody limbs and clothes wash up on shore. You don't see the actual shark until halfway through the movie. I assume the same for the book, but I have never read the book. I'm pretty sure that the gremlins don't hatch. Actually, no, they hatch, but they run away. You don't see the gremlins even after they hatch for a little while. And that's probably about halfway through the movie. If you're wondering when to reveal that kind of thing, that's, think about halfway through. Think about laying hints down here and there. Showing a fin, or a metaphorical fin, or a dead body, or a metaphorical dead body. Remember that your antagonist has to have a goal. The antagonist can have the goal to just sow chaos, but that's hard to pull off, and it's not usually a good motivation. Like the Joker is a good character that wants to sow chaos. But if everybody were the Joker, all the stories would be really boring. Antagonists have wants and needs that go beyond the protagonist. It just happens that they feel the need to stand in the way of the protagonist to get what they want. Or they feel the protagonist is in their way. When I think about the makeup of my story, knowing who the characters are, where they come from, and where they want to go, and how they think about each other, that is how I feel my outline has the best chances of being fleshed out. Because then I can push my people along toward what they want and figure out what to put in their way along the way. So we're going to have 2 episodes this month, and talking about NaNoWriMo in both of them. This episode I want to talk about the social aspects of it, because people just don't... It's a sad truth, but people in your life may not be as supportive of your writing desires or goals as you might want them to be. Or maybe they don't even know that you want to write a book, but you heard about NaNoWriMo and thought, that is the kick in the pants I need. I'm doing it. But if you are somebody who has people in your life that rely on you, or you rely on them, or most people have other people who rely on them on some level. And even if you don't, you have obligations that you can't get away from. You might be a student. You might have a job. You might have a family. All of these things demand your time. So the first thing you have to do is figure out where your time is going to come from to write. You can find it. I know you can. I won't go into it because my interview with Grant Faulkner later on this month will talk a great deal about that, and he's got some great advice. So I'm not going to upstage him, but Grant Faulkner is the executive director of NaNoWriMo. Sorry, didn't make that clear. But the biggest thing is communication. You have to tell people, hey, I'm doing this thing in November, and it's important to me, and I need your support. In the U.S., this is especially important because a lot of times there's travel involved with the holiday coming up. If there's not travel involved, there's probably still people coming over to your house. And that always makes it difficult to create time to write when you're entertaining or traveling or being entertained or whatever. Plan for those days. Know that you're going to be in a car for 12 hours. Know that you're going to be required to help cook or help clean up or watch the football game or watch the parade or the dog show or visit relatives. I mean, there's going to be demands on your time that you can't get away from. And I don't think you should get away from it. You need to find the time apart from that. But I think that being honest with your friends and loved ones about what you're trying to do is step 1. Because if you suddenly start disappearing and clacking on your keyboard furiously, they're going to wonder what's up. They're going to wonder why. They're going to wonder why this is suddenly important. and why you're not doing X, Y, or Z. Why aren't you playing a game with them? Why aren't you cooking a more elaborate dinner? Why aren't you going out for a drink with them? It's all about priorities. But you need to let other people know that, at least for November, your priorities might shift a little bit. Yes, you're binging a TV show with your family, but either let them go on without you or ask them to wait until maybe the weekend when you'll have time to write your words, and then you can watch 3 hours of television. But the honesty is important here. Because when you have the support of the people around you, it makes it so much easier. I promise you that. That's my advice on outlines and on speaking with your family, friends, whatever. Be honest, be upfront, and find the time. And if you can't find the time, then we'll talk to Grant Faulkner in 2 weeks and he will help you find the time. But this time we're talking to Nicky Drayden. Welcome back to I Should Be Writing. I have with me Nicky Drayden, author of The Prey of Gods. How are you, Nicky?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Now, every single thing I've seen online, usually book Twitter, is going crazy for this book. It's getting a lot of excitement attached to it. So what can you tell me about the book with possibly one of the best covers I've seen?
I do give a lot of the props to my cover artist, who is Brannock Adams, who did a wonderful job. He had some original art, and I saw it on Pinterest when I was putting together my cover art ideas for the editor, and I saw this image, and I was just like smitten with it, and I'm glad other people are smitten with it too. It seems like I think it kind of represents what the book has to offer. And there's this little girl with this kind of mischievous, could be happy, it could be kind of diabolical look on her face. And so,
it's very diabolical. I'm on the diabolical side. That is
happily diabolical.
Yeah.
So yeah, cover art matters, and I was really got some really good cover art.
Yeah. So what can you tell us about the book? I mean, we've got the little girl with the diabolical grin and the alien with the umbrella over her.
Yes. So the book, it takes place in a futuristic South Africa, and it's kind of this madcap adventure where there's demigods and sentient robots and these people who are kind of discovering that they have these supernatural powers. And the book has 6 point of view characters. There's like the 10-year-old girl who's an Umbula, a politician, a pop star, a disenfranchised demigoddess, and of course a sentient robot. And there's also kind of the character Musey, who kind of the story focuses the most on. And he's this kind of teenager, kind of on the cusp of manhood, trying to figure things out. His grandfather's kind of pushing him towards traditional cultural things like the circumcision rite. And he has this kind of boyfriend / best friend who they're trying to figure out their relationship. And kind of on top of all these like normal like teenage issues that you're going through, he also discovers that he has the ability to control people's minds. And so, you're already going through a lot. So now he can use his power, but whenever he does, he kind of has the repercussion of being able to have that person's deepest, darkest memory as his own. So he's trying to figure out if he wants to use his power for good or for evil or at all, because, no matter what he does, he's going to have to deal with the consequences.
I see. So somebody who you try to, say, influence a very powerful person who has done bad things, suddenly you know exactly the worst thing they've done, and it's your memory.
And it's your memory, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, it's kind of dark.
Yeah,
but also humorous. So,
one thing that science fiction and fantasy has sorely needed is a non-Western European type focus, and you have definitely brought that by putting it in South Africa. Did you get any pushback when you were sending the book out?
I don't know there was as much pushback as there was like silence.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
so actually, I wrote this book in 2009 for National Novel Writing Month, and it took me about a year to like get it polished up, and another year to find an agent. And I have like an awesome agent, Jennifer Jackson. And like when I got her, like it was just like the most amazing moment. And I'm like, for sure now, like she's gonna sell this book, right? And so like a year went by, and then 2 years went by, and we had like a little bit of interest like here and there, but like no bites. And so like 3 years went by, and I'm like, surely like that's it for this book. And I was writing other things, so I wasn't dwelling on it or anything. So and I knew like she's a great agent, and like she'll just sell the next book. So but then like almost at the 4-year mark, like we start getting interest. And I think the industry has kind of started to make kind of a course correction. And so that was helpful to kind of bring these stories that might not have been told, 5 or 10 years ago, and kind of put them in the spotlight and give other people opportunities to see like a reflection of themselves in a book. So I really am grateful for this opportunity, and I'm really happy that people seem to be, for the most part, enjoying the story.
Like I've said, I've seen nothing but extremely excited stuff about this. I have to ask, is there an audiobook, and does the narrator hate you?
There is not an audiobook at the moment. So
there's a lot of binary in the book.
There is, like, I don't know how that would be interpreted, but that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, so when I was reading, I'm like, how would this come across? Would they actually be saying what the binary is, or would it just be, 10 minutes of 01100? Wow. Do you ever keep anything else in mind, such as how it would come across in other mediums?
I mean, that's not my focus. I can see I can see it like a television or a movie. Everybody would like to see themselves, have their book turned into a movie. But I think that the depth of characters is there to do like a movie or whatever. Even like a comic book, I think might translate well into a comic book. And I would like to see an audio version someday. So hopefully that happens sometime soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. I would. This book just needs to be in so many different ways of experiencing it. So one thing my listeners really like to hear about is how you overcome the variety of things that authors deal with. Anything from finding time to write to or mixing life and writing, or how to deal with, well, as you said, how did you emotionally deal with your book being out for years before Harper Voyager picked it up?
I think writing time is like making time, because that's like the number one thing, is to put words on page. And you can be doing everything else towards, trying to be a writer. But if you're not putting words on page, then you're not a writer. So finding time for me, it's always been like kind of a high priority. And very early on, like when I started writing, I wanted to make more room for writing, in my life. And so I asked my boss, like I have a really flexible job and I'm really fortunate. And I was able to like reduce the hours that I worked. And so, and still like, make enough money to support the other things. And so kind of finding that balance, because there's always a drawback where your time comes from. So a lot of times now it's like getting up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. or if I'm having insomnia, 2 or 3 a.m. To get up and write and use that time wisely, and not, now I have issues like being on Twitter too much.
Oh yeah.
But trying to balance that and make sure, you get however many, your word count goal for the day before you start, getting on social media. Because, social media is also a part, and networking is a part of the job. But if you're spending 80% of your time doing promotional things or networking and 20% of your time writing, that's just going to get old really fast, and you're not going to be able to keep up the pace that you need to actually get a book out there.
Yeah. Your self-control is It's an inspiration, I gotta say. I prioritizing writing is one of my biggest things. Mentally, I like to have everything else done so I could sit down without anything saying, oh, I have to do this when I'm done. But
Right.
if I do everything else beforehand, I either run out of time or run out of energy and can't write. So I kind of
Right.
trip myself up there. Um,
Yeah, I think if you prioritize your best hours of the day, and if you're a morning person, that's going to be like, at 5 o'clock in the morning. If you're a night person, it'll be staying up late. But if you prioritize the best hours of, your best thinking hours towards your writing, and then, if you're tired in the evening, you jump on Twitter or whatever, and you can do that then, but you're not wasting valuable resources and energy on that sort of thing.
I am excited to hear that this was a NaNoWriMo book because I am a huge fan of NaNoWriMo. However, I have never won NaNoWriMo. Yeah, it's really embarrassing. I still am a fan of how NaNoWriMo manages to get people who were not otherwise writers excited about it and get them
Right.
moving. So, can you talk a little bit about your mindset in 2009 when you decided to write this book? Where were you in your career and how much did you finish?
Um, I have been a long time fan of NaNoWriMo for I don't even know when I started, probably like 2004 maybe. And so it's all like I've never really, that's how I started out writing actually, is like I saw this ad or like on the local news did a feature on National Novel Writing Month. And of course, the feature for some reason comes out like on November like 27th or something.
Okay,
So,
great.
which is great. And so, but I'm like, that sounds really cool. I'm going to do it next year. But then it just like the idea of it, just completing a novel in a month, like just seems so awesome. So I decided to do one on my own in April. And I was able to like write my first novel in 30 days. I think I wrote actually like 22 days or something. Like
Wow.
it's like super gung ho. And it's like an awful novel and like it will never see the light of day. But like it just gave me so much confidence and like I can tell a story. And so I kind of have this passion for like encouraging everyone because I think everyone has a story within them and just getting it out. And a lot of times people don't get it out because they're so busy, you have work and life and stuff going on. So just if you can set aside this 1 month and you have like the support group that will help you through it and challenge you and help you, keep your focus. What better, opportunity this is to discover if you are in fact a writer, and if you're not, and you just want to get, your one story out, that's fine. But I just really believe that creativity and writing like saves lives, like literally. And so like anyone I can encourage to write, like I'm always like, trying to push NaNoWriMo on them. But I think it's great. And when I went into this, I'd probably written maybe 4 novels by that time. And so now it's kind of, I just use it for a jump start because it's 50,000 words. And I think I wrote probably about 50,000 words of this. And then, it took me 30 days to write 50,000 words. And then probably 6 months to do the last 40,000 words because it's for me, it's more difficult because you have to actually start tying things together and making sense from like this crazy kind of madcap situation you set up at the beginning, which you can just pretty much get away with writing whatever you want. So that's definitely the harder part, is to kind of tie things up and end a novel. But if anyone's looking to kind of jumpstart a novel, and even if you only get 30,000 words done or 20,000 words done during the month, that's a lot of words, so I don't think anyone should feel like a failure. And if the system doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you, and that's fine too. There's thousands of different ways people can be a writer. So as long as you're putting words on the page, that's what's important.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm going to get to interview Grant Faulkner of NaNoWriMo later in October. We're recording this in September. For the listeners, you know what date it is, but yeah. Sorry. Fran Wild says, Nicky is the greatest. Ask her which came first, Prey of Gods, programming / bots, or the plot.
Oh, let's see.
Actually, can you start with telling us about the programming and the bots?
Yes. Do you mean programming as like my occupation. I'm wondering what she's talking about. Um,
I think she just means within the story,
within the story.
yeah,
Okay.
the AIs.
So I still don't understand the question. Okay. So the bots, I guess the bots would have come first, because when I put together this story, I literally took 6 characters out of my like character sketch file and stuck them into this world, not knowing where it was going to go, because I don't outline, or I used to not outline. I'll outline a little bit now, but I just kind of had these 6 character sketches, and one of them was a sentient robot who's kind of on the cusp of sentience and trying to figure out what it's all about. And so I guess the robot came first, and all that came after it was kind of it's trying to find its identity. And I guess kind of a lot of the themes in this book, kind of revolve around identity. So, and to be honest, I'm sure like the binary code in there was probably NaNoWriMo word padding.
That's awesome. I had not thought of that. Okay, yes. Everybody listen, pay attention. Another thing for word padding is binary. I like it.
You get a lot of, and I actually probably like cut it down by a third, like whatever appears in the book. So there's probably even more when I actually wrote the book. So, and don't be afraid of word padding for NaNoWriMo. There's no shame.
Oh yeah. So I want to go back to something you said. You don't outline, but you have like a character file. Do you just think up characters and write down their information?
Yeah, I just keep a file, and usually like I'll have like a bit of a story idea or a bit of a character idea, and just think it's kind of, oh, this is kind of amusing, but it's just kind of a fragment. So I just stick those all in a file for later whenever I need. And so like the disenfranchised demigoddess, she's working at a nail salon. That idea came to me when I was driving around downtown Houston, and I saw a nail salon called Magic Nails. And I was like, well, that's cool. Like, what if they really did use magic to do, like, give manicures? And then I started thinking about, okay, well, what kind of person, if they have the ability to do magic, would be working as a nail technician? So I wrote a character sketch based upon that person. And it was kind of like almost an unfinished short story, and just kind of filed that away. And so like I had all these just kind of random people laying around, and, not being an outliner, I just, for NaNoWriMo, I just, picked a couple of characters, and they're not related in any sort of way, and then to dump them into a story and decided to see how their stories would weave together.
I'm so excited. Nobody has talked about approaching story the way you do. This is so cool. Outlining. You said you didn't outline before, and I fully sympathize, empathize, and am in that team. But you say you do a little outlining now. Is that because you're selling books on proposal?
No, I think just to keep the ideas in check, and to kind of ensure I'm not like kind of going off on too far of a tangent. I really like to be organic in the story development. And for me, if I know how a book is going to end, like I have no incentive to write it, because like for me, the whole point is to figure out how, the story is going to end. So what I usually do now is I kind of write a very, very loose outline, maybe like a half a page, just kind of where I think the story is going. And if it deviates, that's fine. But just to kind of keep me on some kind of path. And then when I get to the point where I don't know what's going to happen again, I'll outline a little bit more. It just kind of gives me a little bit of focus. But, there's a whole range of from, pantsing to like very detailed outlines who people outline for like years and years before they start writing. So however gets you, from the beginning to the end, that's what matters. But it just really interests me to seeing like how everyone works, and like hearing people's like especially when they have a style that's different than mine, because I couldn't imagine like, putting that much effort into, writing these detailed outlines. But I think it's really interesting to see how they develop their stories.
Yeah, I agree. I find I can't come up with interesting story details until I'm in the middle of writing.
Right.
People try to use the metaphor of using a map, and so your outline is your map. You don't want to go out there with a flashlight and see just a couple of feet in front of you. And I'm like, but that's where I find all the cool stuff.
Yes.
The cool stuff's not going to show up on the map, and I'm not going to know it's there. That cool stuff could send me off in a completely different direction.
Right.
But yeah, I sometimes try to do shorter outlines so my agent knows that I'm not just completely doing nothing or going into a very bad place. Bad as in not saleable, not bad as in bad. But anyway, what are you working on now?
I just turned in my second book, which is also kind of set in a kind of theoretical, almost alternate history type Africa. And it also has like demons and supernatural powers kind of teamed up with a little bit of steampunk. And so it's basically an alternate world where everyone has a twin, and it's kind of plays on the good twin, bad twin paradigm, except for we're getting the story from the bad twin this time. So it's called Temper, and it'll be out next summer, which seems like forever, but it'll probably be here before I know it.
Yeah, probably. Where can we find you online?
I am online on my website, which is www.nickydrayden.com. And I'm on Twitter at Nicky Drayden and on Facebook at Nicky Drayden.
Great. And do you have any last pieces of advice you would like to give to new writers?
I would say one thing is to, find the heart of your story and hang on to it. You're going to get a lot of criticism and a lot of critique from your stories as soon as you start showing it to people. But just make sure you just kind of protect the heart of it. Be open to feedback, but don't let somebody push your story off in a direction that you don't want it to go, because then it just won't be your story. So let's be protective a little bit.
Excellent. Well, Nicky, you've been a delight to talk to. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
And remember, if you want to get a copy of The Prey of Gods, just send me an email, say you want to be involved in the drawing, and I'll draw it before the next episode. We already have one winner of the books from Beth Cato's interview, so I like it. It gets people excited about the books, and it gets the books out of my house, which they're awesome books. They do tend to pile up. I'm looking at a sort of wall I'm building around my desk right now, and I need to get some of these awesome books into the hands of people who would appreciate them. So I've read The Prey of Gods, and now it's time to pass it on. So if you want a copy, let me know. You can see the blog and show notes at merverse.com, and you can email me at mightymur@gmail.com. The things that I have to shill, I've just called out on Twitter today about not shilling my latest project, which is a short story in the anthology From a Certain Point of View, which is a Star Wars anthology, where 40 authors wrote 40 stories in the Star Wars, based on the first Star Wars movie. If you would like a copy of a book that has a lot of the advice I give in this podcast, look for I Should Be Writing at your local stores. I don't know the status of the ebook right now, but I know they're working on one. You can buy it online, you can buy it at stores, and it's a lot of fun. I talk about the bully and the muse, which I haven't really talked about in my podcast. It kind of occurred to me while I was writing that I needed to put a voice to the evil inner editor and a voice to the person who gives you all your advice or ideas. So I've got the bully who tells you suck, and the muse, which gives you all your good ideas. and they have conversations throughout the book. They were a lot of fun to write. And of course, there's my novel 6 Wakes, which is still out and still available and still getting reviewed. I got reviewed by the LA Times recently. That was exciting. So, I think that's everything I have to shill. No, Escape Pod. Right. See, too many hats. I wear too many hats, and I gotta remember, take one hat off, and put the other one on, and remind you that I am a co-editor of a science fiction short story podcast that is free, and it's awesome, and you get one free show a week. I don't know what's better than free stories. Maybe cake? Eating cake while you listen to free stories. That's the dream. Alright, so good luck preparing for NaNoWriMo. If you're not preparing for NaNoWriMo, good luck writing, because you should be writing. Remember, you can support the show at patreon.com/MightyMur. I should be writing theme music provided by John Anelio. You can find more about him at johnanelio.com. This podcast is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license.
But I should be writing. I should be working on my craft.
When this is edited, it's going to sound great. I just want to say. It's going to sound great. Oh, boy.